Moyu RS4M. For general performance, I would say that this cube is quite ready to go out of the box. I even pulled off a 47 average on it before setting the cube up, and my normal average is 45. But I would still recommend some setup, in particular tightening the cube a bit more than the stock tension, and also doing the magnet stacking mod. And of course, I lubed it with Kelvin's high viscosity, which is my default lube for any puzzle. Turning itself, it's a very fast and smooth cube. It allows for a more effortless pushing of TPS, so in other words, I can apply quite little effort just to turn the cube at really high speeds. The forward corner cutting is slightly over a piece, which is quite standard for most 4x4s. For the reverse corner cutting, it's not the same level as like something you would expect from the MGC or the Meilong or the Aosu WRM, but it at least reaches half a piece, which I would say is quite in the middle of the spectrum for a budget cube. So anything more than half, it doesn't cut that easily, but anything less than half, it will go really nice. As far as comparisons with other budget cubes go, the RS4 has a lot in common with the Qi MS4, and both cubes are really fast, really smooth. They have weak outer magnets and strong inner magnets, and it's a really fast cube, and I can turn it with very little effort. And it has a very soft, smooth and cushiony feel, very similar to my Aosu GTS1. Another really fast and smooth cube that is competitive at a similar level would be the Aosu V2M, but the Aosu has less in common with both the MS4 and the RS4. It's significantly more stable than the other two, and then the inner and outer magnets are much more equal in strength. The Aosu also has the thickest and densest plastic feel of them all. The RS4 is a little bit lighter and airier, and MS4 is even lighter, so it's like the RS4 is sort of in the middle of the spectrum, and as far as reverse corner cutting goes, it's also quite in the middle of the spectrum. The Aosu can cut slightly better than the RS4, so it goes slightly above half. Then the RS4 cuts exactly half, and MS4 cuts below half a piece. For forward corner cutting, again, I would say the Aosu cuts the most, which is above a QB. The RS4 cuts also above a QB, but you need to force it a little bit more. MS4 cuts the least. The RS4M is a rebranded Aosu GTS1M, and I'm just going to show the pieces side by side. So this is the RS and this is the GTS, and you can tell that the corners are exactly the same all the way down to the anti-stick design, because there's a slight groove here on the GTS1, and then if you were to look at the RS4, you can see the same groove exists. And when you go to the edge, it's even more obvious. Okay, from this angle you can really tell. On the GTS1 you can see 3 stripes along the edge, and on the RS4 you can see the exact same pattern. Now I'm going to insert the RS4 pieces into the GTS1 and vice versa. So GTS1 with 4 pieces from the RS4, and the turning is still really nice, and it's totally not affected by the piece swap. For the RS4 with 4 GTS1 pieces in it, its turning is also pretty much unaffected. And the RS4 is made of frosted plastic, while the GTS1 is glossy plastic. Even though the mechanisms are exactly the same, there are a little bit of bug fixes. So if you remember the old batch GTS1s, some people have actually complained of the center stock breaking. Inside this core here, you can see a square and a circle. That's how the centerpiece is structured, and the circle is not supposed to turn. It's locked into the core by a very small hook. And what happens is, since the GTS1 plastic was a little bit softer, that small hook has bent outwards slightly in some people's case, and it resulted in their GTS1s having the circle no longer fixed, and then the bump can move, and when it moves to the wrong place, it locks up the cube. Whereas on the RS4, the section that locks the center circular pillar to the core is actually a bit bigger than it is on the GTS1, and therefore it's stronger and it's less likely to bend. At the same time, I also do find that the RS4 plastic is just harder and it feels a little bit cheaper than the GTS1. Rebranding a premium cube into a budget cube is a move that we have seen before, not just from Moyu but other companies. For example, the Yixing Little Magic 8 and 9 are basically the Huanglong 8 and 9 printed in budget plastic. Guansu, all the way back from 2016, is actually a Weisu Mac being printed in a harder plastic as well. Although I think that one has some slight variation in piece construct. But overall, I still think the GTS1 is a slightly better cube than the RS4. The reverse corner cutting is also better if you're really looking out for that. and overall it feels a little bit more stable, a bit softer to turn, and it's more controllable. Whereas the RS4 is basically what you would expect if you were to take the same Mac and print it in a budget plastic. Another thing I would like to mention is the RS4M Plus. You take a second magnet and stack it on top of the first one. It's a move to strengthen weak magnetic cubes, and the RS4 is a very prime example, and also the GTS1 is a very prime example of what happens when the outer layer magnets are really weak, and at the same time the inner magnets are just stronger, so when I stack the outer magnets, it equalizes it, makes the cube a lot more stable. So I think the final result on the RS4 and also my GTS1 is that the cube basically just becomes a lot better. So now, like, there's quite a major upgrade in stability. The inners and outers are really similar to each other, and overall the RS4 is still on the weak side, while the GTS1 is a little bit stronger. When I did this mod to my GTS1 all the way back in 2018, I got a 33 single and a 39 average of 5, which still stand as my PB in modern day. Despite switching to newer and more advanced 4x4s, I still haven't beaten those numbers. While I don't see the RS4 being like as good as my GTS1, I do think that like it's really greatly improved by this mod, and I've also gotten quite a lot of good times on this cube. Namely, my average, like I said that it was 47 when I first got it out of the box, but after doing the Plus mod and getting used to the cube, my average actually dropped all the way down to 45, which is basically the same time as my Mei Long. Before you accuse me of not giving the MS4 the same treatment, because that cube is also super weak outers and significantly stronger inners. Like, the fact is, I did think about this when I was reviewing the MS4, but the MS4 magnet slots are vertical plastic strips that do not allow you to stack magnets, whereas the RS4 magnet slots have flat tops, so you can actually stack magnets. My conclusion over the RS4 is that it delivers a performance around the level of the Qi MS and the Aosu V2M, with slight variation in stability, inner versus outer magnet strength, and corner cutting, and so on. It's really up to personal preference between the three. And some of you may also want to add the Yixing Little Magic 4x4 as a fourth cube in that same tier, but personally I don't really like the Little Magic due to how slow it is. And definitely I still think the Mei Long 4 is the best 4x4 in its price range, pretty much hands down. The Mei Long will be my default recommendation to anyone looking for a good budget 4x4 at any skill level, beginner, intermediate or advanced. However, if you do have a unique turning style that does not fit well with the Mei Long, or especially if you do like the larger cubes and you're not a fan of cubes becoming smaller, or maybe you don't mind something heavier or you want something really smooth, I would say that the RS4 is quite a good option. The RS4 would be really nice if you have a lighter turning style and you wish to push your TPS more with lightweight turning. And this is actually my turning style for 5x5, 6x6 and 7x7, but how I do 4x4 is quite different, and I still prefer my super strong magnet and strong loop Mei Long 4x4.